We've been talking about farming on this channel for a little while, and I've been visiting a few farms and looking at some of the issues that farmers are facing at the moment, not least the weather, of course. We know that the weather is being controlled to make sure that this year's harvest is going to be damaged because everything's flooded. You may not believe me, but just look up in the sky and see how many aeroplanes have got those geoengineering chemtrails tailing by, and then watch what happens to the weather. I mean, you don't have to be a scientist to see what goes on. Aeroplane goes this way, chemtrail comes out the back, within an hour, grey sky. Happens all the time. And then if you see a nice clear day and no chemtrails in there, the day stays clear, doesn't it? Which means that you can actually grow stuff. Well, that's okay if you don't have organisations stopping farmers from actually doing that, like the government with their sort of nonsense subsidies saying, oh no, you can't do this. This is what we'd like you to do. We'll pay you some money to grow some flowers or plant some trees, but whatever you do, don't grow food. After all, we're very interested in those synthetic burgers that Mr. Gates seems to do. You can have insects as well as part of your meal. Mealworms are supposed to be quite nice, and what is it, death watch beetle, which is one, or cockroaches. Have a big plate full of those in your insect pie. Never mind cottage pie. No, that's gone. Insect pie will be the thing. You won't have mashed potato on all of that. You'll have some sort of horrible, nasty, crushed bones of some insect. I don't know what it would be. Can't even conjure something up on the spare of the moment. It just sounds absolutely disgusting. But some people across the other side of the world, incredibly poor, they enjoy it, and they say, well, there's nothing wrong with insects. No, but there's nothing wrong with potatoes, and there's nothing wrong with cabbages, apart from those cabbages in Parliament, of course, or carrots are pretty good, or even beef and pigs and pork and chicken and all that good stuff. There's nothing wrong with those either, and actually we've been eating those for so long now, we've got used to that. It's part of our national diet, so why wouldn't you want to eat those? And they're good for you, especially if you get them from local mixed farms and in season and not transported across the world and all that sort of nonsense. It would be much better to have that. But no. You see, there are organisations that are trying to stop you from doing that, including, funnily enough, the National Trust. Do you remember the National Trust? Do you remember that organisation that went a little bit woke a few years ago? Do you remember? And all its exhibits, anything that had a very strange connection to, I don't know, plantations or slavery would have to have special interpretations about Lord so-and-so whatnot living on his estate, had put some philanthropic money towards something which had some weird connection to slavery, and reparations needed to be paid to those people, not to the people themselves because they're long dead, but perhaps just people who, have got some vague connection to them. Maybe the colour of their skin, or maybe they just happen to be living in a house that once upon a time sat on a plantation, or perhaps they're breathing the same air as somebody who maybe once picked some cotton somewhere, and that's a good enough excuse to be given a great dollop of money. Who knows? I don't know how the machinations or the brain works, if it does work, of those people in Parliament who come up with these schemes. But anyway, another organisation, a corporation I think they are now, probably, most likely like all these people, the National Trust. They own a lot of property, don't they? They own a lot of property all over the place, and some of them have tenant farmers farming their land. Well, they used to, until they decided, actually, we've got to save the planet. This man-made global warming myth now has got into the National Trust. There's a couple of articles here. I'll show you the Farmers Weekly one. Here it is. National Trust Rewilding Project leaves tenants feeling pushed out. And this came out in July 2022. So it's not a recent story, but I had an email correspondent saying, Richard, you should be talking about this because farming is being pushed out. It's a long game. Several farming tenants and the Tenant Farmers Association are concerned by what they see as overzealous way in which the National Trust is taking productive agricultural land back in hand for rewilding. Excuse me. Farmers Weekly talks to some of the tenants. So here's a Devon farmer, and he leaves farming after 28 years. Patrick Greed, his name is, who farms on the Killerton estate in Devon, feels he has betrayed agriculture after accepting an incentive from the National Trust to give up his Agricultural Holdings Act tenancy after 28 years. So he had this tenancy and he was doing it, and there's some of his lovely looking cows. Don't they look delicious? But no, they've got to go. They've got to go, and he's been told that it's no longer a farm, it's going to be rewild. And bet your bottom dollar you won't be able to go on that and see any of the rewilding, because I dare say there'll be some razor wire going all around it. So here's another one, a Cornwall farmer. He feels destroyed. Tom Hanson, 42, and his partner Becky took on a 220-hectare mixed farm in Stow Barton in Cornwall 7 years ago, and having farmed 60 to 80 hectares of it for 14 years, they fully expect it to continue. But it looks like the National Trust wanted to do something different. And so Devon Farm goes to public access. I don't know what that means. But anyway, it's the Tenant Farmers Association Chief Executive George Dunn says that what is happening to some tenants is devastating. He says they put heart and soul into the place, hoping to get some sort of tenancy renewal, and are told this ain't going to happen. We ain't going to do farming anymore, says the National Trust. We don't do that. And then somewhere down here we get the National Trust's side of the story. The National Trust says it wants to make its land better for nature. Yes, not for humans, just for nature, to help tackle the nature and the climate crisis. Oh my giddy. It says they want to create and restore 25,000 hectares for nature on our land by 2025. Work started in 2017. This means that we may retain land in hand, often temporary, to reset the management model. Now, it's interesting because during lockdown, I went to interview, I had to get in touch with them, a lovely bunch of farmers. A family of farmers, and they were doing beef cattle. I'll put a link in the description because it was a lovely little video on the National Trust property local to me, and I'd be fascinated to find out whether they've been kicked off because they were new farmers and, as it says, put their life and soul into it. And the learning curve and making organic meat, beef, I think it was, beef farming, and they were doing some meadows and stuff and things like that, but who knows, maybe they've been kicked off as well. If you've heard any stories about that, if you know any more about what the National Trust is up to, or any of these organisations that are holding land and have decided in their great wisdom, these people who make these decisions, obviously very, very clever, far more cleverer than you and I, because they can come up with decisions such as, if we stop farming, there won't be any food. Oh, yeah, that's a good policy. Yeah, we'll rewild it for the insects and the butterflies and some birds, but not for humans. Well, what will happen to the humans? Oh, they'll be all right. Bill Gates has got some artificial bacon and burgers they can eat. They'll be all right with that. I don't know what you think about that, but this does seem like a stupid idea. And of course, like all of these stupid ideas, we've got to assert ourselves and say, actually, thank you very much for all of this. We'd rather not have any of it. You are barking mad, and we don't want any of it. We don't consent to this nonsense. You may own the land, but you're really only the custodians of it. So maybe we have to take the land back from these people. I don't know how. Lawfully and honourably, of course. No violence is ever going to be suggested on this show. In the meantime, do let me know what you think about this National Trust pushing farmers off the land so they can rewild it. Perhaps you are one of these people who think that the planet is burning up and it's the only way to save it, to get rid of the humans. And then who's going to be there to have a look at this planet and enjoy it? Something perhaps these people have not yet thought of. Who's actually going to be there to see that the planet is safe? You need somebody there, don't you? Or maybe not. Thank you for watching.